Stella Rockwitz. So was I right or was I right? Yes? Stella, beautiful as always. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So let's take the lyrics from that song and let's consider something today before we get into the actual message. Consider that everything in your life up to this moment, everything, the good, the bad, and the not so good, led you from where you were to where you are right now. And the things that were perhaps the most difficult are the things that awakened you to become who you are today. That you would not be the person that you are today to be present to at the end of the journey when you meet the presence of God or the presence of your God essence and your own self. Never would have happened without the broken steps and the stumbles and the falls in the road to get to that moment. And the things that you learned, the practical things that you learned from there to here. I want you to consider that as I share. I thought about this talk today, and I thought, I told Susie, there's nothing sexy or joyous or fun about this talk. It's just really kind of rubber meets the road spirituality. But the reality is it is important that we recognize rubber meets the road spirituality because that's what helps us get up when we fall down. That's what helps us grow when we are on the ground. That's what keeps us moving forward when we have fallen and things have not quite gone as well as we would have liked them. I want to begin with a story. There were two young men, and they had grown up together, spent their whole life together, went to school together, went to college together. One of them became a very wealthy man, and the other one became a carpenter. And the wealthy man went to his friend, and he said, I have such admiration and respect and love for you that I want you to be the carpenter that builds my dream house. Here's a check for $1 million. Build me the best house possible with $1 million. Well, the carpenter, he was not quite as wealthy at the time, had a thought. I could build a magnificent home, a really great home, and I could probably do it for $600,000, $700,000. And then I could pocket all the extra money and just put it in my pocket. And he began to work. Substandard work on preparing the soil. Warning, Will Robinson, warning. A foundation that used substandard materials. He cut corners. The walls began to go up. The studs were going up, and he cut corners. Every time he got a chance, nobody was going to see that. Nobody was going to see what was on the inside. Same with the roof. Now, the exterior of the house, he made it look so good. It was polished, slick, from top to bottom. It looked like $1 million house. And when the time came that he had finished the work, he handed it over to his beloved friend, and he said, here are the keys to your $1 million house. And the millionaire said, you were such a beloved friend to me. Actually, my friend, you have built your $1 million house. And he gave him the keys back. Well, you know the story. Anybody, and there's builders around the room going, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. Fine for the first year. Second year, problems began to occur. 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years into the journey, all of the $300,000 that he had pocketed went out the window times 2 because of the substandard work. Every one of us is building a house. We sit here today as individuals and a collective building a spiritual home, building a spiritual house. And I'm just going to put it out there. My assessment is that there's a lot of people in the New Thought community that are building a home with substandard labor and substandard materials. We are cutting corners. It's not about blame or shame. It's just recognizing that it's what's up in our culture. The world is looking for the magic pill to make my health be fine. Well, there's a lot of people looking for the magic pill to make my spiritual life be the most magnificent house. And there's a lot of exterior that looks so beautiful, so magnificent. But on the inside, there are very practical things, necessary studs and foundation and preparation of the soil in order for us to flourish, in order for us to create the kingdom of heaven that we are all seeking. And I'm going to use the acronym PAR today. How many golfers do we have in the room? We got one. We're happy for you, sir. PAR, the necessary components to build the spiritual house. Now, if I understand anything about golf, par simply means the standards set between the tee to get to the hole in the ground. Is that, in fact, the accurate assessment? The standard that has been set to get from the T to the hole in the ground, from birth to the hole in the ground. Your life on earth has a par, significant studs and foundation necessary to have the fullness in that dash that we talk about. I was born, I'm on the T, and I want to get to the end of this journey, and I want to be fully and completely actualized, realized, and enlightened. And we spend a lot of time theorizing about the things necessary. But I'm just going to call out for myself today that sometimes I'm cutting corners in the very non-juicy, non-sexy things that are absolutely essential. There's nothing attractive about studs in your house, nothing attractive about the foundation or the soil prep. But you don't do it, the house is going to crumble, and there'll be a huge price. So PAR is the acronym that stands for, is your spiritual path practical? Is your spiritual practice applicable? You can put the slide up now. And is your spiritual path relevant? Think about that for a minute. Is it practical, applicable, and relevant? Without those studs in the walls and those girders in the roof, you're going to have leaks and walls are going to be coming down. So let's begin with perhaps the most misunderstood of all those words, practical. Anybody ever know anybody who used practical or practicality as a means of destroying your dream? Sometimes in New Thought, we play in these esoteric realms. I want to be real clear, this is not what I'm talking about today. Oh, just be practical. Oh, your dreams are pie in the sky. All your visions that they're teaching you at that Unity Church, it can't possibly be. Just be practical. That is a complete and total misuse of what practicality is. It is metaphysicalizing the idea of practicality. Let me explain this to you. It means transcending theory and being more concerned with doing and implementation than the theory. That's what practical means. It deals with the mental side of our spiritual life. Ever notice that we are really good as metaphysicians at theorizing, philosophizing, and bouncing ideas back and forth and talking about them until the juice is just sucked out of the idea? There's a lot of that goes on in spiritual communities. Beyond theology, beyond philosophy, is the actual proving of the principle. Here's a word we use a lot in New Thought: demonstration, manifestation. And in many circles, it's just words. That's all there is, because there is not the follow-through, the practical application of taking the divine idea out of the realm of the mental and putting it into action. Basic metaphysics says God's job is to create the divine idea. In the mind of God, we go dip into that, and we want to spend there all of our time and not do our part of the equation in co-creation. That is to grab that energy and to make it manifest here on earth. That requires my thoughts leaving the realm of the laboratory of my head and entering the field of practical application. So let me clearly state that when somebody says be practical, take it as what it really is. It is a grounding to the earthly experience so that the balloon of your creativity, the balloon of cosmic, wonderful, ethereal ideas can go here and can go there, but you're not floating lost in space. Without the grounding of understanding, as Jesus said, I'm in the world, but I'm not of it. And there's a whole bunch of us in metaphysics that don't want to follow the full example of what Jesus gave us. Oh, I'm not of the world. I'm not of the world. And they're floating around like balloons in a perpetual state of lost in space. Warning, Will Robinson. Warning, Will Robinson. There's no grounding. The house is built upon sand, and it will eventually crumble. But when you are grounded to something of the earth with the understanding that you are a human being, not in a body by accident, not in a life by accident, you ground your feet so that balloon can go one side to the other and collect the ideas necessary for the full life. So many people are wandering the planet totally and completely lost. But practicality, I like to get very Buddhist when I talk about being practical. You know, you are not going to argue about God with a Buddhist. They won't enter into an argument with you. They won't enter into an exchange of ideas about who's right or what religion is right or what God is or what God isn't. They don't even talk about God. Here's what the Dalai Lama had to say. I want you to read this with me. I know it's small. Put your glasses on. Here we go. Whether you believe in God or not does not matter much. Whether you believe in Buddha or not does not matter so much. As a Buddhist, whether you believe in reincarnation or not, does not matter so much. You must lead a good life. There's nothing, that's pretty plain and simple, isn't it? Nothing to argue with there. Be a good person. Now we can argue and we can debate, what does he mean by good? Let's suck the life out of good and debate about what good really means. What does God really mean? And there's a lot of that. It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to use your mind to intellectualize, theorize, to even argue and to ponder your navel. But at the end of the day, lead a good life. That's practical application, that what I am thinking in my head is showing up in my life. It is incongruity. And the only person who gets to get in your face about that is you when you look in the mirror. It is not my job to get in your face. But either the demonstration and the manifestation is matching what is in your head, the theory in your head, or it is not. That's kind of hard to hear. But practicality takes love. It takes God out of the realm of ideas and into the realm of doing, of implementation. Anybody ever look at a beautiful sunset or a beautiful sunrise for those of you who are early risers? Just awe and wonder. Wow. Let me take calculations about why that sunrise looks so beautiful and why the clouds, the trajectory of the clouds and the wind is blowing that made that exact color of orange. We don't do that. We're partly on this earthly journey to just have awe and wonder, and we will enter the kingdom of heaven, or the house that we are building that is the kingdom of heaven, by simply being in a place of awe and wonder and moving out of the mental gyrations and gymnastics that occupy most of metaphysics. Play there and then leave there. Because otherwise, that dash between the T and the hole in the ground is going to be a mental exercise, and a mental exercise only. You're missing half of the equation. 24/7, the foundation of practicality assures that spirituality is not an event, but a lifestyle. I want you to take that in. The foundation of practicality assures that spirituality is not an event, but it is a lifestyle. 24/7, 365. It is the integration of the oneness that we talk about. It is the integration into the fabric of your very existence, the house that you are building of love. Let's quit debating about what love is, where love came from, and let's start being love. Mother Teresa said this at one point. It's not an exact quote because she wouldn't have said these exact words. Let's quit flapping our gums about the Christ and start being the Christ. And the reality is religion has taken us so far into a mental realm that we have cut corners in the experience, the mystical experience of like, wow, Susan, you're amazing. You're beautiful. But let me try to understand what you said. Let me try to understand why you believe the way. I'm missing the presence of God sitting before me. That's practicality. That grounds me in the fact that I am the presence of love, and that balloon that we're going to toss around is going to go 100 places, but we're going to find love, and we're going to find it together. Easier said than done, yes? Many dreams have been shut down because somebody didn't understand that practicality is simply giving feet to my prayers, giving hands to my meditations, giving a body to that which I believe. Master teacher told us also, you'll be known by your fruits, not by your fancy words or your fancy prayers, but by how you're demonstrating that which I am. Let me see God in your actions more. That's practicality. Let me see God more in your actions and your deeds and your tasks and your love made manifest before you even open up your mouth. That's what practicality is about. Let's move to the next word. Applicable. Is your spiritual path applicable? What do you think? We've left the mental realm. Now we're in the physical realm. Practicality is in the mental realm. Applicability is simply in the physical realm. You don't have a body by accident. You got to use it. Here's what I have to say about that. Faith in action. Truth in action. Beliefs in action. Paul Coelho had this to say. I want you to read this next quote with me together. Together? The world is changed by your example, not by your opinion. Fifth unity principle. The fifth principle of unity is the truth that I know is the truth that I demonstrate. The truth that I know is the truth that I'm manifesting. The truth that I know is spoken before I open my mouth. This church itself has as its mission statement, and I'm sure you've all memorized it and taken it to heart, to recognize, and then the most important word, to demonstrate, and then share the divinity of all of us. Oneness, talk about oneness is cheap. Talk about love is cheap. How does your life show that you are the veritable presence of God, the veritable presence of life? You know, spirituality is just a pretty pipe dream if it never gets put into action. There is an amplification that happens when your hands and your feet and your body are behind your thoughts. They are applied, practically applied. And there's a lot of people around the New Thought movement that are speaking beautiful words, beautiful, magnificent words. And they look so good on the outside of the house, and the house is crumbling on the inside. Not blame, not shame. It's just like, let me look in the mirror, because I'm going to own it for myself. There are some times, and I'm coming face to face with that as I look in the mirror, that what I taught on Sunday did not get implemented on Monday. I'm not blaming myself. I'm not shaming myself, but I'm going, something's out of congruity here. I might want to look at that. And the only person who can look at that is the one looking at me in the mirror. That's my job, not yours. And the same for you. When you get up, what I'm saying, what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, does it match what I am doing? Is it applicable? Because if it isn't, I'm going to submit that you're wasting your time. You're never going to get to what you need to get to build the $1 million house. It will never, ever be built. It will crumble, and you will lose more money than you are putting into your spiritual path. Let me ask you a question. 3 frogs sitting on a log next to a beautiful lake. 3 wonderful frogs looking at this magnificent lake. 2 of them decide they're going to jump into the lake. How many frogs are on the log now? 3. Deciding is not doing. Dreaming is not doing. Having a thought and contemplating my navel for 10 years is not doing. You're of no earthly good if you're not putting your spiritual path and your faith into action. And yesterday we moved a member of this congregation. I don't know if Richard's here today. He's probably a little worn out. Richard Clancy had to move. There he is. And let me tell you, I was so humbled and pleased by love in action. The number of people from this congregation that said, he needs help, our brother needs help. We didn't talk about it. We didn't think about it. We showed up, and we loaded some really heavy furniture. You need to... It is important that your body is behind your prayers, that your prayers have feet. You see, and the thing I want to put out there today is your spiritual path applicable only when it's convenient? There was nothing convenient about giving my day up to go move Richard Clancy, but I got a lot more love helping him than I would have sitting on my couch watching a football game. On that note, go 49ers. You know, our board president is a rabid Kansas City Chiefs fan, and I'm already grieving for him in the loss next week. He and I are going to share a little bit next week up here in our respective jerseys. But the reality is, deciding is not doing. And the house that you are building it requires doing. You know, life doesn't change the law. We teach spiritual laws here. Practical, applicable spiritual laws. They're not juicy or sexy, but boy, are they necessary for a foundation that will not sink. And so many people think that, well, this is my spiritual path that applies when everything's working. These are the truths, oneness and love and harmony. When you're showing up just the way you're supposed to show up, then I will apply the laws. Life does not change the law. The law changes life, and it is really important to look at that. Whether life is great or life is miserable, whether you are in jail, you are bankrupt, or you're the millionaire, the law does not change because your life is looking not so good. You have the power been gifted into your hands to change the life because you implement the law. It is applied at all times, with all people, in all circumstances. By grace, you have been given the ability to make a magnificent home. And by law, if you cut corners in that house isn't going to stand. By spiritual law, if you make an exception to where you can find the face of God, your house will not stand. If you make an exception to where the spiritual law is being implemented to love, even in the midst of chaos and evil and hate and racism and anything else you want to call, the spiritual law doesn't change based on life. You change life because you're bringing the law into play. It is applied, practical application of spiritual truth. Let's get to the next one, my favorite, relevant. I've used this word a lot lately. You know, some of you may have noticed that I've gotten a little intense, I've gotten a little emotional, and used the words, I want this church to be relevant. And I've talked about some things that are a little uncomfortable for me. And if it's uncomfortable for me, it has been for you as well. And I said, because I want the church to be relevant. This is not going to be the Unity Church as long as I'm running it that says puppy dogs, rainbows, everything's perfect, you're perfect the way you were created, and then I see lives that are out of congruency with that truth, not being applied, not practically applied. As I call myself out, we're calling each other out. What does relevancy mean? We've moved from the practical, the mental realm, to the physical realm, the applicable. We're going to get to the soul level, the spiritual level of what we are about. This is what relevance in the Oxford English Dictionary is defined as. The state of being closely connected or appropriate to the matter at hand. The state of being closely connected, that sounds like oneness to me, or appropriate to the matter at hand. There's a lot of matters at hand in the human race. And when I talk about soul, I am transcending the typical new thought thing. It's my soul, it's me, it's myself, and I. When I'm talking about relevancy, I'm saying I'm addressing the soul of the entire earthly experience. Every human being. I cannot separate from them if I am one with them. That means if I am to be relevant, I'm going to talk about what's up in the field. Not just what I want to hear, not just what's comfortable for me or easy for me. So I'm asking you, is your spiritual path relevant? And let me use this as an example. I'm going to blow it up to the extreme today. I'm sitting by that lake where the frogs were. It's a beautiful green grass, the still lake. The birds are tweeting. The butterflies are going by. There's a nice breeze and the sun is shining. Everything feels so great and wonderful. And I happen to notice that somebody's fallen in the lake and they're drowning. Let me say a prayer. Wow, they're really going under the water. I better do some meditation. I deny that water has any power over that person that's drowning. Let me affirm that they are one. You are one with the water. You are one with the water. Yeah, they're about to be one with the water. Let me get out my art supplies. Let me get my pens and my board. I'm going to make a storyboard about how I'm going to save this person's life. I am irrelevant in that moment to what is at hand. The only place God exists, the only place love exists, the only place truth exists is where? Now. The only place a life will be saved is if I get a little bit busy in my body, practically applying, here's a hand, come on out of the water. There are people dying on the planet in one form or another. Maybe not physically, when that happens. There are people that have died 10 years ago and they're still walking the planet. I want to be relevant to those people. I want this community to be relevant to those people. That if it's up in the field, we're going to talk about it and we're going to put a hand out. Oh, it's not comfortable. I'm sorry, it's not comfortable. But I want to save just one person's life because it was a relevant spirituality, it was an applicable spirituality, and it was practical application of the oneness and the love that we teach. This is what Jimmy Carter, who was one of my heroes. Jimmy Carter is a classic example of being the Christ. This is what he had to say. Please read this with me. I have one life and one chance to make it count for something. My faith demands that I do whatever I can, wherever I am, whenever I can, for as long as I can, with whatever I have to try to make a difference. Is my belief system, is my religion, is my spirituality making a difference in the life of one person right before me right now? If it's not relevant. And that one person is not you. It'll make a difference for you. Please, let that be first. Put the oxygen mask on yourself first. But if you stop there, there's a whole plane full of people going down without oxygen. Is my faith making a positive change for the whole or just the microcosm of me? If it's not, my spirituality is a house built upon sand, and the house is crumbling, and it is not relevant. If my belief in oneness does not create a deeper connection with the soul of our common humanity, if my spiritual path does not connect me with the presence of the oneness, which is the soul of God, the soul of humanity, the soul of the earth, and the soul of all creation, I am irrelevant. Now, this is my opinion. This is my disclaimer, Bill. You told me I could have one. This is my thoughts. I'm not taking a stance for the community. I just happen to be the one that gets paid to come up here and talk about it. But I'm going to share my thoughts because I want to be relevant. I want to make a difference on the planet. And then when I reach the hole at the end of the course and I'm in the hole, they go, wow, that dash was filled with practical, applied relevancy. Pretty theories. I want the tombstone to say he made a difference. Not he knew a lot. Boy, he could sure talk. He could do a good message. What happens up here is completely and totally insignificant to what happens down there if it doesn't match. I want to be in a community that, and there are many of you here that call me out on the incongruency. Thank you. My friend Mike Stott, who is a member of the board, he calls me out faster than anybody I know. And I take it. Because what he's calling me out on, I see it being lived. I see it being applied. I see it being relevant. And I want to be relevant with my friend Mike Stott and the hundreds of other people that call this place their home. So here is what I am setting as our par for the course. A move from selfishness to selflessness. You want to be the Christ? There's the move I want you to make. That's the $1 million house, selflessness. Because there is only one self. Little less self, and then your big-ass self that we are. I want you to channel your big-ass self. That was an S, not an ass. Love is most potent when it leaves the mental plane and it enters the physical plane and touches the life of one person in front of me right here, right now. Put your hand into the lake and say, hey, you're not on my watch, you're not going to drown. Faith is more potent when it leaves the laboratory of our thoughts and the mental gyrations, gets put into our hands, and looks like service. The house of our spiritual beliefs that we are all building. Do not cut corners on the stuff that isn't sexy, the stuff that nobody sees. That's where the house has its stability. The components of which that house will be made must be of the highest caliber of practicality, applicability, and relevance. And when it is, we will build the true house of God, the true heaven on earth that will stand for eternity, not just for a moment. Let's take these ideas into meditation right now. Take a deep breath with me. As we go into meditation, I want to ask the question, have I ticked you off today? I had a minister teach me, and I tried to channel him. He says, if you haven't ticked somebody off, you're not doing your job. Sometimes you tick me off. Sometimes Mike Stott ticks me off. And I'm grateful because he causes me to grow. He causes me to go out of these doors and be more the presence of love. To be more in congruity with what I'm saying up here and what's going on in here. Take a deep breath with me. The presence of God is right here, right now, not tomorrow, not some far-off distant place of reward, right here, right now, sitting in your seat? Are you in congruity with the presence of God doing business as you? Please sing this chant with Danielle.
God is here.